Hey, welcome to Hot Takes. I'm your host, James Scott, here to analyze anything and everything interesting. Let's dig into today's topics.
Well, this is going to be an episode.
Yes.
This is going to be an episode. So I am going to try and not laugh half the time or yell allegedly at James half the time. And so I'm going to start off very calmly for this episode. Welcome back, everyone. James, do you have any news? Anything you want to talk about for the week?
So there's not a lot of news this week. It's kind of a fairly quiet week. It's going to be a fun episode because of what we're covering this week. I understand a little bit better, I guess, this week why people in baseball and front offices do value walks as much as they do, because the frequency in which walks can happen is fairly high. I learned this, operating day-to-day operations on a fantasy baseball team. That being said, I'm still of the opinion that hits are completely underrated. Singles are completely underrated, because not only can you hit a single against hard to hit pitch, but singles drive in runs. Walks don't really do that. But I do understand that for the purposes of frequency and for the ability to up a player's ability to hit for power, have them pull the ball more. I understand the importance of patience a little bit more right now. That being said, it's not something that I highly value. It's something that's part of the picture. It's part of a balanced lineup. And anytime you have a lineup with too much of it, not only is the team not capable of winning championships against the highest pitchers in the league, the team gets kind of just boring to watch. It's just Walker Homer. Nobody's doing anything exciting. There's no first to third. There's no stolen bases. There's no, triples, doubles. It's all just, the pitcher hung a mistake in the zone, 400 feet. Or a pitcher put a mistake outside the zone enough where he walks to first base. Where's the challenge? Where's the matchup? Where's you know what I mean? You're not going to win against elite competition that way. You might win enough games over the course of a full season, by getting mistakes and hitting, home runs with people on base, by, just by, how many runs you're going to put up, how many runs the opposing team is going to put up. That's a strategy that can work during the regular season. There's a reason why Oakland has never done anything in the playoffs. It's because this money ball on base percentage power strategy, it only works when you have balance. It only works when you have all these other elements working for you. And if you don't, you're not going to get too far once you're facing higher level pitching, higher level teams in general. If you happen to go in the playoffs and face a team that's a similar level team to yours, then that's great. But you're not going to do that the whole playoffs. You're not going to do that, from wild card to division series, from division series to championship series to World Series. It's just not going to happen. So it's no wonder that they haven't won a championship. And the one year that I thought they had a chance was right when the Royals were doing their thing. So they never were able to make it past them. In fact, talk about making it past them. That their season ended on a ball hit past Donaldson, their third baseman at the time, by Salvador Perez, who's still with the Royals. So it's just it's just very interesting how you can even have multiple teams capable of winning a championship in one year, but one will beat out the other. And even if it's in as simple of a game as the wild card game, for instance, then what's going to end up happening is people are going to forget how good the team was. Oakland A's of, I think, 2015, it might have been, were really dominant. They had Donaldson, they had Cespedes, and a couple other guys. So anyway, before I get caught up in that point and all of that, let's get my least favorite team in all of baseball out of the way with our divisional rankings. We talk about the best team in each league, the second best team in each league. We work our way from the bottom to the top. Each one of these episodes that we do, we usually cover if it's the third best team in the American League Central. Then right after we cover that one in the same episode, we will be covering the third best team in the National League Central. So now we have worked our way around where I think we're on some of the last teams on our list.
You
And right
really
now,
dislike this team so much
yes,
that to avoid saying their name, you you are just
they're terrible.
you you're just
These aren't.
rehashing what we do every episode.
Yeah, no, they're terrible. They're terrible. They're this is the thing. Like they don't have to be terrible. They chose to be terrible. Like you can come to the game and you can compete and you can try and win, but if you break the freaking rules, if you break the, I'm not allowed to say other words there, but if you break the rules, okay, if you break the rules and then you get no punishments, you're gonna hear it for years
From
from me.
James. From James.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like I'm not gonna lay off. I'm so I don't tolerate this in any way whatsoever. We had an era where there was steroids and it was prevalent. Every team had guys doing it. Now we have one team getting away with winning the championship by cheating. Nah, no. People need to get banned from baseball for life for this happening. But instead, nothing really happens. Like the players suffered little fines, I believe. And then if you look at what happened with the managers who were all involved, they were suspended for a year. They're back, all of them. Like, where's the consequences? Where's the justice for ruining the one last sacred thing in baseball, the one last thing that wasn't tainted? Teams have tried to throw the World Series before to lose it on purpose. No one's tried to win it, throw it by winning it. Cheat and win. People have cheated on an individual basis. Steroids, yes, it was spread out throughout baseball, but also you have to remember that a steroid using player is one guy on a team. You still need everybody to play as a cohesive unit to win a World Series. So for the Astros to do what they did was unforgivable, unfathomable. And then on top of all of that, they got away with it. So I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop until we have justice, until this team is banned from baseball and turned into the Montreal Expos, which should have never left, or maybe they get turned into, a new team in like Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte's wanted a team for a while. I don't think that Houston deserves a team. They got Texas Rangers who are in Arlington. You've lost your privileges. You've lost your having a team privileges. I'm sure there's a bunch of people in Brooklyn who, their parents were Dodgers fans. They'd love to see the Dodgers come back to the city. There's innumerable places around our country, and like even in places that are like, there's been people thinking about, hey, maybe we should make a team in Mexico City or something like that. Like anywhere is more deserving than this place, than this owner, than this team. I'm done. I'm done with them. I'm sorry. I mean, not really. So it's just, yeah, they suck. They suck. In my eyes, they suck. So look, they got Greinke, who's on, my fantasy team, but I don't really view Greinke as a cheater because he's a pitcher. It was the lineup that cheated, from what we understand. Although Trevor Bauer reports that the pitching rotation, a lot of their pitchers, they gained a whole bunch of RPM. I'm not aware that Greinke did. I think Greinke's whole thing is that he likes to mix pitches up. He likes to throw 50 miles an hour like he did the other day. I think he threw a 51-mile-an-hour pitch the other day, which is insane because he's capable of throwing like 94 as well. So how are you going to do that? How are you going to hit that? So a big fan of Greinke. I don't view him as part of that. He's definitely a weird guy, but so am I. So, um, Lance McCullers, he was with the cheating team, and he's also a bit of a jerk, allegedly. Um, I knew you were gonna so I knew you were gonna hit me with that, man. I had to bring it up first. So it's like diffusing the bomb. I believe there's actually a psychological term for that. I gotta remember. I gotta remember that one. That because there is a psychological term for like if you know that you're about to like have a scandal or something politically,
Hmm.
um, there's this term for being able to defuse what you'd get in trouble for before you get in trouble for it by basically like detonating the bomb yourself by like coming forward with the information yourself because then there's nothing for anyone to feed off of. It's just kind of there, you know. So but there's a term for that. It's a really interesting term. I learned about it the other day, and I learned that it's something that politicians do to kind of like deflect and whatnot. So anyway, get back to the Astros. No, Lance McCullers is a guy who was with those teams, and he's kind of not the nicest guy from what I've seen. Um, they got Odorizzi because they had a whole bunch of injuries, so he's kind of like a four starter. He'll come in and replace guys as well as he can, but he's no Valdez, he's no Verlander. Um, they got Stanek, who's an interesting opener type reliever ish pitcher. I mean, an opener is kind of a reliever, kind of not, but I think it's basically a reliever. If we didn't have openers, it would be a middle reliever. And they also have Ryan Presley, who's their closer. He's a former middle reliever. I believe he played for the Twins recently, but he's nothing ridiculously special. He just gives them a decent closer. And that's all they have from a pitching side of things. Um, there's absolutely nobody specifically notable catchers like Jason Castro. Who cares? He's not that great. In the infield, they still have Yuli at first base, but he couldn't hit without knowing what pitches were coming. This year he started off really hot, but who knows if that's because now as a contact hitter he has to work the count and get to more hittable pitches because he does have a good swing, but he needs better pitches to hit. So him now having to be this type of hitter might be beneficial to him, but it also might be like a short-term game where like, oh, he's getting success. He's getting a lot of success because now he's walking a lot because pitchers don't know that they can go in the zone and go fastball breaking ball or fastball change up with him. So that might be like an early season thing, and then once they start attacking the zone, maybe his success on balls in play goes down. And maybe it's just luck on balls in play that's keeping him here, along with pitchers not necessarily attacking the zone, not knowing that his approach has changed. And I think that that's why you sometimes have hitters do really good for like the first month, and then they can't do anything for the rest of the year. So Aledmys Diaz is a guy I've always liked. I like his hit tool. The Astros are a very hit tool heavy team, which is kind of no wonder because if you know what pitches are coming and you're really good at making contact, well, what do you think is going to happen? You know, they have Correa still at short with all of his back problems. Outside of 2019 and 2017, uh, Correa has not really been that great of a player. Last year, he was right around league average, a little bit below league average. If you take away like 7 games of his season, he was actually hitting in the 100s with like a slugging percentage in the 300s. And if you look at his numbers in like 2018 around an injury, he was about league average. You look at his numbers in, it was either 2016 or 2015, one of those 2 years. He was like only 20 something percent above league average. The other one, he was a rookie. The league didn't really know him. So there's a high chance that with Correa's consistent back problems and now without knowing what pitches are coming and also without the juiced ball that he's not going to be the guy he used to be. But after a year like last year, Correa is the kind of guy where he's got an ego. So he's allegedly. No, but he's got an ego. If anyone has an ego, Correa has an ego. He even knows it. I mean, how could he not? But yeah, no, this is a guy who he knows that he's capable of putting up performance, and he just had a year where it was proven that without these things working for him, that he's not even an above average player. He's like league average, and what would be a lot worse if not for a 7-game stretch. So I do think that it's possible that he comes in and has a really good start like he has so far, and then because of it injures his back. I think you're going to see that from a lot of their players. I mean, we've already seen it from Springer, who's left the team. He's been getting oblique issues, I believe. It's either hamstring or oblique. I believe it's oblique. And he's been out, consistently for the Blue Jays. Bregman, he's been having hamstring issues after he put on like 23 pounds of muscle this offseason. And then you have Altuve, who now is hurt. So all of these guys doing whatever they can to recover, their numbers to some, some sort of semblance of relevance. They're all now getting hurt because they're pushing their bodies further than their bodies, are comfortably able to go. It's not like you can just turn back the clock after years of just, sitting on a gimmick, if you will, being cheaters, losers. So anyway, I'm sorry, I don't have any chill for these guys. Like this is like every other player in baseball, including players in the minor leagues, like they're thankful to be there. Okay, to just be in the show. And these guys are winning a championship off of cheating. Think about that for a second. Like just the contrast there. Thankful for being there. Thank that, they always talk about, thanking, their higher power. Like I don't see any true thankfulness in any way on this team. Anytime where you hear a post-game interview where Correa is like, I'd like to thank, whichever higher power he believes in. And he's had a lot of, post-game conferences. I don't want to, mischaracterize, whatever religion he believes in, but he's had a lot of them where he has thanked God, if you will. It seems absolutely hollow. God would not want this if there is a God. Like, so what is he going to say, if you do believe in such things, when he dies, right? And he goes to the Golden Arches or whatever you believe, right? And he says, hey, I'm Carlos Correa. And they ask him, in a game where everybody is working, as hard as they can from the youngest age to make it to the highest level. And they're just thankful for being there. Why did you think it was okay to cheat? And, Correa says, well, you don't know the deals. You don't know the details. You don't know. So you should just be quiet. Like he said to Cody Bellinger. He said, oh, Cody Bellinger, you don't know the details. So you should be quiet. In an interview, he said this, live television. You think that they're going to let you into heaven or wherever, And even if you don't believe in those types of things, you think that you're cultivating good energy. If, energy transfers, we're all full of it. So if you believe that energy just, is what we are, you think that you're going to be, transferring as a positive force here? Or do you think that you're going to be transferring as a negative force and just staying negative energy in whichever next, substance you inhabit, be it a rock or a TV? Like, does this sit well with your soul? Is, I guess, my deeper question here. What were you thinking? So anyway, we're not,
I'm like, oh my God.
this isn't Law and Order here or anything. It's just, I don't like these guys at all.
Like grilling every player as you pass by that.
Like, it's just, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, I had respect for these guys when they were in the minors, when they were first coming up. I was like, man, Altuve at his height to be able to do what he's able to do. I respect that. And, like Yuli Gurriel, he's known as the Derek Jeter of Cuba. Like, oh my God, like that just by itself deserves respect. He's like going to be in the Cuban Hall of Fame if there is such a thing, made. He definitely would be in there. And then, he also his younger brother's in it. So now this is kind of like a legacy name potentially, the Gurriels. And then, you have Correa, who I've been watching since he was like 16 years old. I got all these fuzzy videos that I got in the back of my mind of him fielding balls at shortstop and just watching his footwork and just being like, oh man, I like this guy. If he doesn't stay at short, he'll be a great third baseman, but he might be one of those guys who's bigger and able to stay at short. I remember looking at Bregman and being like, oh my God. I mean, for a shorter guy, he's got the perfect approach. He hits for power, contact. And then longer term, when Correa gets bigger and slows down, you're going to be moving Correa to third, and Bregman will be your shortstop. Think about that offense at short. Like, I loved these guys. Springer, when he put up those numbers in the playoffs, specifically the World Series in 2017, I was like, oh my God, I want this guy on my team. People who can hit like that in the playoffs, who are that young, meaning they have, their whole career ahead of them, better years ahead of them. If you don't have pressure on you and you're able to perform at that level at that age, think about how it's going to be in the future when you get to the playoffs. Again, pressure won't be there. You'll be still in your prime, if not even a better player. Like I was ecstatic. Like I loved these guys. Josh Reddick, a guy who could go over the fence, rob homers, hit for as much average as you could expect a lefty to hit for in a shift-heavy league. He could go first to third as well. He was a decent base runner, lefty hitter, like I mentioned, but also a guy who could gun out runners in the outfield, cannon of a throwing arm. And when you have all that together, contact, little bit of power, lefty bat, throw runners out from the outfield above average, rob home runs. I mean, that's a fun player. Like they had a team of guys that I respected. This is why I feel so, I guess, just this is why I feel the way that I do. This is why I feel livid, as I guess the right word for it. Because these were all guys who, like from the youngest stage, from the first time I found out about them, in the minor leagues even, in the draft or internationally with regards to Correa, these were guys that I really was excited about and I admired in a lot of ways. And I'm in my 20s, man. Like I'm gonna be 30 next year, 29 this summer, 30 next year. Okay. And this hurt me, so I can only imagine, what do you think it did for kids? What, and you could be like, oh, well, what kids are going to be impacted by this? Okay, maybe, you have people who are kids who are, fans of other teams that are going to be like, whatever, it's not my team. I can hate on them, but what about fans of the Houston Astros? What about all those kids in Texas? What? I mean, I would be crying like anytime anyone brought them up, if I was like, because that's the team that I grew up on. That's the team where they won the World Series, their first World Series. I look up to Bregman. I wear, like I have all of his jerseys. These kids, they get attached to players. Like I saw a YouTube video of a kid when a player for the Blue Jays got traded. He found out, or she found out, and I think it was a girl. She found out that the guy got traded, and she literally like broke down crying. So a lot of these kids, this is real, especially when you're an organization that clearly commits to some of these guys long term. Like they've committed to Altuve long term, they've committed to Correa and Bregman long term. And Springer, they thought, fans thought that he was going to be a long term guy. So I think it's a betrayal, and like not even like anything close to an okay one, because it's a like, just think of the children. I don't want to use that saying, but actually like think of them. Like that's awful. If it's impacting me and I'm like a fan of a different team, mind you, the most successful team. I mean, do we really need another championship? You know what I mean? Like it's affecting me. Then how do you think it's affecting them when it's their only championship? You know, when it's their stars, their heroes. Like, how dare you? You know, how dare you do that? So this is why I feel the way I do. I mean, I looked up to these guys, so it's a shame, shameful. So Brantley's on their team. He came onto their team, I believe, after they won the championship. He's another one of those contact bats. A lot of people are bigger on him than I am. I understand that he doesn't really strike out. He gets on base a lot, hits for a decent amount of power. He's lefty and hits for contact. But I've never figured where that ever fit on my team. And all the people that I know who like him are either Yankee fans or like fans of teams that need outfield help. And I know most Yankee fans are like, oh, we should have gotten Brantley instead of, this guy or that guy, or, we should have traded Frazier and not brought back Gardner and, had Brantley in there. I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, the fans just clowning because, they want to make all these millions of moves. And because the millions of moves are done, that's the reason why we'll win a championship, because everything has to change because everything's always wrong, right? Miss me with that. You know what I mean? Um, you know how they say it. Miss me with
Yeah,
that.
miss me with that.
Yeah, yeah. And then lastly, the Astros do have Abraham Toro, interesting prospect. They have Chaz McCormick, another interesting prospect. Nobody who's really like top end there between the two of them. Straw can cover a lot of ground in the outfield. If he can hit, you got a player, but that's a big if. McCormick is also pretty much an if. Toro should hit enough to be a regular, especially with the lineup protection that they have. But I mean, even him, he's not like going to be middle of the order. He's more like a 6-hole hitter, 7-hole hitter, back end of the middle of the order. I will say I love Kyle Tucker's swing. That being said, there is a chance because of the type of swing that it is and how unique it is that it may take longer for him to fully adapt to the big leagues. That being said, once he gets his timing down, I think it's going to be a really rare swing, a beneficial swing, and it'll make him an incredibly valuable player for a few years. Definitely watch Kyle Tucker and don't discount how fast he is either. Lefty, can make contact, can hit for power, very fast, corner outfielder. Not the greatest corner outfielder, but definitely not a problem. But yeah, that's Tucker. I believe his younger brother Cole Tucker is with the Pirates organization. He's a shortstop. I think that's his younger brother. Yeah, you know what? No, that is his younger brother. I don't think I know that one. And that's the Houston Astros. Verlander, Framber Valdez, and Forrest Whitley all got Tommy John, which sunk their rotation. Odorizzi's not going to be enough to make up for it. Greinke's good. McCullers allows more homers every single year, so I don't really trust him. And they have a good lineup, but it's going to get hurt because all of them have had to be basically either hot and cold hitters or just patient hitters because they've lost a lot of that natural hit tool from not knowing what pitches are coming. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? Because a lot of that hit tool is, very rare skill. So for you to go from knowing what pitches are coming and being able to make contact and then having to adjust just in case it's not the pitch that you thought was coming. I mean, that it seems like, you'd foul off a lot more pitches. You'd work deeper counts. You'd have to get better at pitch identification. All of that trends towards being a patient hitter now. All of being a patient hitter all of a sudden also trends towards, being a hot and cold player, not having your bat path ironed out early in the season, possibly. Or maybe you've shifted your approach to try and make yourself work as a different type of hitter, and it's the type of approach that the other teams, the other part of the league, can account for, and we'll know about that by the end of the second month of the season. Whoever's fallen off a cliff at that point in time, that's a huge red flag for Houston. So Houston, heck, they might even be a team that goes and drops back to even third in the division, which I'd be cheering for. I hope that we don't hear about Houston for years. They do not deserve it. Like literally, let everyone from the championship team leave. Let them all go. Like let Correa's career end. Let Altuve's career end. Let Bregman's career end. Like so on and so forth. And then you can be good again. I don't want to hear about you guys other than that. I mean, I will speak on you guys. I will rip you guys to shreds because you deserve it. But yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say. This is a team that I think is only ranked as high as they are by me because of the history. They do have, a good deal of, I'm not going to say high-end players, but I'm going to say for sure production. Because even with the injuries that they're going to have when their guys are healthy, as the new versions of themselves, the more patient versions of themselves, they're going to walk. And with that many walks and, how much mistake pitches you get per year, they'll be able to drive in enough runs where they'll be competitive. I don't know to what degree Bregman and Correa will be able to turn back the clock. Altuve seems to have turned back the clock in terms of the type of player he is. No power now. That's who he is now. He's all, I'm either going to walk or I'm going to hit singles. So that's an interesting profile. He's getting on base a lot more, but he's kind of given up altogether the ability to hit for power. That's the side of the scale that he's gone towards. I think that likely because Bregman was already patient and because of the type of player Correa is, it's a high likelihood that both of them become more of the hot and cold players, or either that or just way more on the patient side. Yuli Gurriel is kind of the wild card because he was a very contact oriented hitter and he could have actually done better if he worked the count deeper, but also he may not be able to work the count deeper without sacrificing his ability to make, any sort of hard contact. Like, I think he's at that point in his career where like it might be like, because this is the thing, he's a contact bat, but he's also the kind of contact bat where each year he's making lighter contact. So right now we're not seeing a lot of out of play power. We're seeing a lot of in play power. We're seeing a lot of walks out of him. But I think that that's because people are still pitching him the way they used to. That he was, swinging all the time, that he's a contact bat. So they're giving him more balls. But I think once they start attacking him in zone, I think there's a high likelihood that even his in play increase in power goes away. So, but yeah, that's the Astros. That's all I want to say on them. I don't like them at all. At all. So that will be the second place team in the American League West. Let's move to the National League West. a much more fun team to talk about. Actually, honestly, one of the funnest teams to talk about, if not the funnest team to talk about in all of baseball. A team that's already gotten a no-hitter this year. Joe Musgrove pitched it. And that's the San Diego Padres. Padres I got finishing in second place just behind the Dodgers. I am convinced that this team has the most starting pitching in Major League Baseball. They got Musgrove, they got Darvish, they got Snell, they got Lamet, they got Clevenger, who will be back next year. They got Adrian Morjan. I believe that's how you say his name. Um, they got Mackenzie Gore. They got Chris Paddock. They got, I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And it's no other team can match them in terms of starting pitching. And they also have a pretty decent bullpen. They have Pomeranz, they have Melanson. I think at some point in time, Emilio Pagan's going to pitch like he used to. So they do have Anderson Espinoza, who could come in and be in the bullpen. They have Keone Kella, who's a good reliever. Morjan also can move to the bullpen, and I also think that there's a high likelihood that as the season progresses and Gore moves into the rotation, that Chris Paddock joins the pen because he's a two-pitch pitcher. So they have tons of pitching, absolutely tons of pitching. And I do want to mention Snell's a guy who, when he's right, he needs to be in an organization that's not like Tampa. Because when he's right, you need to let him just keep pitching. Tampa, they taking him out of the game in the playoffs, like Tampa did, was what made them lose the World Series. I mean, it pretty much was the reason why they didn't win last year. And I think that now that Snell is, on a different team in the National League, where they're a lot more willing to kind of let players be players, at least that's from what I've seen. It seems like once Snell is, built up to where he usually is, that he's going to be able to go much deeper into games on a consistent basis. Especially, with a new manager, new league, all of it. I think it's going to work really in his favor. Yu Darvish, I think, is one of the most dangerous pitchers in baseball. Joe Musgrove was really starting to emerge as the season went on last year. We saw him pitch a perfect game already this year. So this is literally as high end starting pitching as it gets. Even Dinelson Lamet last year, the guy, for the third year in a row, dropped his ERA, and his ERA was almost in the twos. It was in the low threes. These guys are aces. Even Clevenger, everybody knows Clevenger as one of, if not the ace for a minute of the Indians before Bieber came along while Kluber was out. Clevenger, he's that good. He's out all year this year, sure, but that just gives them another arm next year. And then on top of that, Mackenzie Gore is commonly viewed as the best starting pitcher in the minor leagues. So they have more than enough pitching. As far as hitting goes, they have a catcher platoon right now of Nola and Caratini. Nola's hurt. He's on the 10-day IL, but he'll be back. Nola strikes me as a guy who's going to hit lefties. That's it. I don't like him that much. He's a good backup. Caratini, he could hit righties, but I'm also not the hugest fan of his bat. Apparently, he's a great game caller because not only did he catch the perfect game from, I believe it was Alec Mills for the Cubs, but he also caught the perfect game for Musgrove. So he's a really great game caller, but he needs to pick it up offensively. The good news is that they have Campusano behind both of those guys who he had a marijuana offense, and that's why he was suspended for a little bit. But I think he's going to be back from that. It's kind of a, in this day and age, a ridiculous offense. You can't really be like, oh, he's a druggie or anything. Dude, it's weed. It's weed, not that I, condone anyone using weed. Everybody has their own things going on. It's just as suspensions go, it's kind of seems like a slap on the wrist suspension. It's not oh, he missed time because of an injury that'll be repeatable, or oh, he has a drinking problem, or a DUI, that kind of thing, or he hit his girlfriend like we see sometimes in football and baseball. That's always awful when we hear about things like that, or it's just he got caught with some pot and that's it. So I don't really blame him too much. He's a great player, really good catching prospect. So that probably is their future at catcher. But for the short term, I guess the hope is this year at some point Campusano is ready. And it is a real possibility that by the end of the year he'll be ready. But at least until then, they have Caratini, they have Nola, That's fine enough. They have Hosmer at first base, who like really learned how to pull the ball and put the ball in the air last year, which is something that he's needed to learn his entire career, because he hits the ball very hard and hits the ball consistently. He just would hit it on the ground a lot, and he'd hit it across fields. So now that he's pulling the ball and he's hitting it more in the air. He's hitting it frequently enough, and he's hitting it hard enough where now you're starting to see a real profile from a first baseman, not just a contact lefty profile bat, which is rare at first base, sure, but now you're starting to see like a true middle of the order guy in all ways. So that's really cool to see at first. We've been waiting for that out of Hosmer. Tatis, he injured his shoulder. At some point, he'll be back this year. Kind of reminds me of something that happened to Derek Jeter. I believe it happened in 2003, I think it was. I think they were playing, it was either opening day or it was around opening day. They were playing against I think it was the Blue Jays. Jeter went into third base, and I think the third baseman came down right on him, and it popped his shoulder out of place. But it ended up not being, that much of an issue, because he did miss some time. Yes, he needed to recover from it and whatnot, but he ended up playing still in 119 games. And I could see exactly that from Tatis. He got injured so early in the year. It was the type of dislocation of a shoulder where it came out and then went back in, and it was minor. So yeah, I could see this being like a situation where people watch it and they were like, "Oh no, he's going to be out the whole year," and then in like 3 weeks he's back. So yeah, I think that's probably going to be what we see at short. But until then, we got Ha-Seong Kim, who came over from Asia this offseason. He's very young for someone to come over. And watching him at the plate in spring training, I got to watch him a lot, because Peoria is right around the corner from where I live. So I got to go by and see a few games where he played. I think I saw 4 games with him in it. 3 games with him in it, something like that. And what I found is that Kim has a great build for a ball player, especially, someone of his height. He's very, long legs for someone of his height, someone as short as he is. But also, perhaps the bigger thing with Kim is that Kim has a fantastic swing. The issue is that his timing is completely off. I think what'll help with that is getting reps, being in the big leagues and getting everyday reps. So during this time that Tatis is out, it's kind of perfect because Kim, he just gets to take over shortstop and shows what he's got and get his, his reps and get his timing down. And they're probably not going to have him near the top of the lineup, to be fair, but it works really perfectly. Cronenworth is also going to do really good in the short term, so you can get him some reps in there too. He's going to be a guy who at least the first half of the season will hit like he did last year before, pitchers start to really figure out how to, go about pitching to him. But if you can use him not regularly, like use him off the bench, you might even get him to be better, like good for more than the first half, good for the whole season, because you're just reducing his exposure. So that's probably what they're going to do with him. I've also heard rumors of them trying Cronenworth in the outfield. And then, you have Profar, who can play second base for you, who's on my fantasy team. I'm a huge fan of Profar. Like he walks, like he pimps walks like McCutcheon. He walks all the time. And he also hits for decent contact, but he's one of those guys where like he's doing this on purpose so he can really recognize pitches better, because later in the seasons when the power starts to come in. So Profar has been fantastic for the Padres so far. They also have Jorge Mateo, who in limited time that he's been playing for them at the big league level, he's actually been pretty decent, hitting for a little bit of contact, hitting for a little bit of power, not very much on base percentage, but when, you can run like he does, whenever you are on base, you're putting yourself in scoring position. If you're hitting for power, then not only are you putting yourself in scoring position, but you're probably scoring other people. And if you're hitting for average, then you're consistently hitting. So I don't mind him being this type of hitter. I just know that Mateo has a scouting reputation, not something that I've seen, but something that scouts have said they've seen of having a poor baseball IQ. I really hope that this is not the case because Jorge Mateo is one of the fastest players that I've ever seen in my entire life. It'd be a shame if that speed was wasted. Like, this is a guy who I've seen go around the bases, like on an inside the park home run, faster than peak Billy Hamilton. And you got to remember, Billy Hamilton started as in the left-handed batter's box. Mateo's a righty, so he was a couple steps that Hamilton wouldn't have to put in behind Hamilton just by being in the other batter's box, and he was able to best him on an inside the park home run in the minors. So yeah, Mateo is insanely fast, and him being on that team is a huge deal. Not to mention the fact that they also have the man Manny Machado at third base for them. Now Machado's an interesting player. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Robinson Cano. Cano didn't have Cano, the big rip on Cano by Yankee fans when he was with the Yankees is that Cano didn't run balls out. And that's kind of what Machado is ripped on for, that he turns doubles into singles because he doesn't really run hard on balls that, he hits. And this may be the case, but Machado also never gets hurt, just like Cano during those years. And Machado also hits for batting average, which Cano did during those years. And Machado also hits for power, which Cano did during those years. And Machado makes insane plays at second or at third base, whereas Cano made insane plays at second base during those years. I think, how their defense is evaluated is also similar, where, I think it was his first year in San Diego. The defensive numbers said that he wasn't really that good. And I think, certain defensive numbers said that Robinson Cano wasn't really that good back in the day. But anyone watching Cano or watching Machado knows those players, knows that that's not the case. Both of them were phenomenal and are phenomenal defenders. It's just you see players like Cano so that they can stay healthy for the whole year, like Machado, so that they can stay healthy for the whole year. They specifically put in their best efforts when there's a runner on base, when the game is close, when it's a really important game. So in normal situations, maybe they're not too good, but that keeps them able to play 160 games a year, 155 games a year. So, I used to rip on Machado for a lot of the whole, run out balls, man. You're turning doubles into singles. But looking at how healthy he's able to keep himself and knowing how, Cano was and how this is a very valuable player, you just have to, understand that, in order to get that type of value, you're only going to get certain types of effort out of them at certain times. Well, it's in big moments where you're getting those levels of effort. So really, how much of a hit is that? As long as you're surrounding them with consistent guys, I don't have a problem with these types of players, especially because of how high end they are. So that takes care of basically the infield. The outfield, you have Will Myers, who's a fantastic hitter, very underrated base runner. My guy puts up fantastic BSRs on a year-to-year basis. Then you got Profar, who can rotate out there as well. You got Pham, who he's gotten a little bit worse each year that Pham has been in the league. I'm starting to think that maybe Pham was one of those Cardinals guys who had a lot of polish and was just fast enough and strong enough at peak where he was able to sustain it a couple of years. And that's why he's still been able to be good. Because, look, or maybe it's, the stabbing. He got stabbed during the offseason. I think it's the second time he's been stabbed, which is some wild stuff.
Stabbed for what?
I don't really know, but it could affect his performance. That's for sure. I do like his stance change, his batting stance change. So I'm hoping that he can come back, but we haven't seen much of anything from him this year or last year. And then the year before that, he was performing, but it was with the juiced ball. So it might even be 3 years of him not being the guy anymore. So that kind of stinks. I'm also not the biggest, believer in Trent Grisham. I think if you look at Trent Grisham's numbers, a lot of them, they came into existence from the juice ball being in AAA and the big leagues in 2019, and then it came from the league not knowing him and him being a patient, polished hitter in the big leagues who just pulls everything he hits. So I think that Grisham may not be quite as good as a lot of people give him credit for. Um, and Jorge Ona, he looks like a hitter, but I'd keep him in AAA a little bit longer to make sure that the strikeout issues aren't going to rear their ugly head again. First year in the big leagues, he had like a 46% strikeout rate. That's not something that really works for me, but he clearly has a big league bat, and if you hide him in left field, um, I think that that'll kind of work, especially if they have a really good working center fielder. I like the idea of putting Profar at second base. I like the idea of trying to get Kim reps during this period of time that Tatis is out, especially with Ona being out as well. Like honestly, I would start platooning Pham and Grisham. Try to see if Pham can at least hit lefties, Grisham can then hit righties. And if you can't get that out of them, I would trade both of them, put Mateo in center field because that's kind of Mateo's main position. And with his speed, you need to just let him go and run and just, whatever balls are hit out there, you have jurisdiction. Everybody else has to defer to you. And maybe that allows them to cover up some of Jorge Ona, and better utilize Will Myers and his arm. But make no mistake, this is an offense first team. Whether it be hitting consistently, hitting for power, walking, running the bases. This is a very offense first team. I really want to see Jorge Ona in the big leagues this year. I'm not sure it's going to happen. I really want to see Mateo take over center field for them this year. I'm not sure it's going to happen. I really hope that, Kim ends up getting a super utility role. And then when they end up making moves, I really hope that Grisham, Pham, and Cronenworth are those moves because I think they could get a lot in return for all of them. And I also think this is probably the best that you're going to get out of Cronenworth before the league adapts. And I really want to see Campusano in the big leagues too, because that would be a really fun team to watch. Campusano at catcher, your top prospect, catching, can do defense, can do offense. That's exciting to say the least. You have Hosmer, who's a fantastic playoff hitter and really coming into his own as a power hitter these days. So you have him at first. You have Machado, Manny freaking the man Machado at third. You have Tatis coming back for short. You have at second base, Profar, or if Kim has figured out his timing, you put Kim there and you use Profar as your super utility because he can kind of play a whole bunch of positions. You go with Mateo in center field, so you have the fastest guy on earth basically in center field. Like that would be really cool having Mateo in center field. Like then you have Will Myers, very fast and middle of the order hitter in right field. You have Jorge Ona, who's not very fast, but definite middle of the order hitter in left field. I mean, that would be a really exciting team. Like Caratini's good, but boring. I'd love him as a backup. Nola's boring to me. Ha-Seong Kim, I like him, but he needs to get his timing down. I almost think that he'd be better in AAA just for like the first few months of the season. But with Tatis down, he's going to be able to get the timing at the big league level. So I think that's actually, now that I think about it, almost more advisable situation. Better to learn in the big leagues than AAA. Especially when the previous level that you were playing at is basically like AAA caliber. Cronenworth is valuable, but you got to use him as a super utility player. You can't fool yourself into thinking that this guy's an everyday player. You also can't fool yourself into thinking that he should be playing over Kim or that he should be playing over Profar. That would be a bad idea, but he does have a lot of value, so maybe hang on to him. But Grisham, at best, Grisham's going to hit righties. At best, Pham's going to hit lefties, I think. You hope that Pham's production comes back. I like his stance. Like I said, it looks a lot like his new stance looks like it's engaging the back elbow a lot better. And if you're going to hit for power, you have to be able to engage the back elbow. And in order to engage the back elbow, you have to utilize your shoulder. And this is why, like, when you see people who are typically power hitters, they don't bat like this. They bat like this. See how the shoulder's on par with the elbow being up? Because when you load, that brings this, you see how it's back at that angle? And then when you come around with the bat, you're really able to drop the bat more because of where your arm is, where your shoulder is. Whereas if you're already starting low, then you're just kind of extending your elbows when you're hitting. It doesn't allow you to use your shoulders in any way whatsoever. So some of the best power hitters, they always start like this. You'll see it in Harper, you'll see it in Ohtani, you'll see it in Judge, etc., etc., etc. Now it's not foolproof. It's not every single guy, but it's most of them. And the ones that don't start like that, they always have some sort of like bat movement, hand movement thing that they do. So, but either way, I mean, I just named a ton of players that are of value on the Padres roster. Profar, Pham, Onya, maybe. I think it has a hyphen over the end, so I think Onya. Myers, Grisham, Tatis, Mateo, Machado, Kim, Hosmer, Cronenworth, Nola, Caratini, and then Campusino, if he can come up. That is more than enough position players, and they have the whole season to sort through them. Same thing with their pitchers. They got the whole season to sort through them. It's going to make them very dangerous in the playoffs. And if they can somehow make it past the number one team in their division, my goodness gracious, they could do almost anything. They could, like, if they could make it past the Dodgers, you got to remember they'll have a full series if they make it past the Dodgers. They'll have a full 5-game series if they win that division. And heck, if they get a wild card spot and they win the wild card game, they get a full series. So no, I think the Padres definitely are one of the most dangerous teams in baseball, one of the deepest teams in baseball, one of the funnest teams to watch in baseball, one of the funnest teams to play for reportedly in all of baseball, if not the funnest team to play for reportedly in all of baseball, at least by what the players say. If you're a fan of the Padres, it went from being a very meh team to being like so exciting. You have pitching, you have guys who are for the future, guys who are, for the future that are good now. You have an owner that is okaying moves by your GM to add guys regardless of what you already have. Like, there were moves that they made where it was like, okay, they got Kim, but where are they going to play him? Okay, they got Profar, but where are they going to play him? Okay, they got, Caratini, but where, that's not a bad thing. People get hurt. In fact, these days, every team has like one of their regulars go out for like the whole year or like a huge portion of the season. So, no, it's really exciting if you're a Padre fan right now. You had the winter meetings, and then basically immediately following when the winter meetings happened, your team like became amazing. Like, I went to the winter meetings when they were in San Diego like 2 years ago. It was fun. It was a really fun time. I mean, it wasn't quite the way the winter meetings are when they're in Vegas. Like, that was another, experience entirely, but nothing's like Vegas. There's only one place in the world like Vegas. That's Vegas. So, well, I wouldn't say that. Like, the Dubai is pretty Vegas-like, and certain parts of like Times Square is pretty Vegas-like, but like nowhere is, going to be that way for the whole city, except for maybe Dubai. And, maybe there's a place in China, I forget what city it is, that is absolutely wild as well for like technology and whatnot. So there's a couple. All right, fine. All right, I digress. All right, but like, I'm like, wait, okay, maybe there are. Wait a second. And then that one, and then that. No, but it wasn't quite what it was in Vegas for sure. But it was a fun time. Anyone who wants to go to the winter meetings, I say go for it, but you have to know what you're getting into. We'll definitely at some point do a podcast in the future where we're talking about the winter meetings. But the pluses and minuses to going. I've been now a couple of times. I'm gonna go, this winter, assuming they have it. I don't think that they're not gonna have it. Like they didn't have it last winter. I mean, it was they had it, but they had it for people who were like GMs, owners, front office members. So it wasn't really nothing I could really do. But yeah, no, this December I'm gonna be there. So, but yeah, no, basically ever since San Diego hosted it, they have been a phenomenal team with regards to making moves, making the smart moves, accumulating talent, doing what they have to do to put themselves in a position to win championships. And I think that that's kind of the key here. That like they got pitchers because pitchers win you championships. They got brilliant catchers because brilliant catchers win you championships. Kurt Suzuki is a huge example. Um, he foiled the Astros strategy in 2019, stopped them from cheating themselves to a second one. He did that. He did that. He conducted that. Kurt Suzuki did that. So it's not because Kurt Suzuki has a great arm. It's not because Kurt Suzuki, can block balls better than anyone. It's because he's brilliant. He's been in the game for years. Eric Hosmer has amazing playoff statistics. Machado does really, really good in big moments. Tatis is probably one of the most talented players I've ever seen. And he's capable of stealing home and hitting a ball 500 feet. So, as well as playing a stud shortstop. You add on Will Myers being able to hit for power, hit for contact, and run the bases that he at the caliber he's able to. You add Profar. I mean, this is a team that could totally win a World Series. They have guys who are that caliber of player. I'm impressed with everything. Like, don't get me wrong. I like to see a team where if you're looking at their roster, it's fairly full, but it's fairly full with guys who all individually have their role. And there's definitely tons of guys on their 40-man roster who kind of don't necessarily have their role figured out. But the way that they built their roster, that's completely okay. Like they've got so many starting pitchers that whichever starting pitchers, get hurt or, haven't figured it out this year, they're going to be fine. And, they have a bunch of relief spots open. So, if you have to put a starter in the bullpen, you can do that. And that can help out things in the short term. But also in the big innings when they need to get things done, they have guys like Pomeranz. And for like the ninth inning, they have guys like Melanson, got guys like Emilio Pagan. They got like Craig Stammen, like they have guys who can handle the roles that they need typical bullpen guys to handle. Like this is just going to be such a fun roster to watch just come together over the course of this season. I think they do stand a really high chance of knocking off the number one team in their division. So, and that'll do it from me, Chris. You got anything to say?
I mean, I thought this was going to be a Bashapalooza. It was actually not a Bashapalooza. It was a pretty decent and tame, for talking about Astro standards. It was pretty tame.
So and for me, right?
Yeah, I'm like for James, it was actually pretty tame. So yeah, no, I mean, that I agree with you 100%. We did those first 2 episodes on the Astros cheating scandal, so I expect nothing less actually than talking about them as how they are. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like I expect absolutely nothing less. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like I had so much vitriol for the Astros in those episodes, and I feel like this is just like, now that I'm at this stage of just like I guess I'm accepting, the current
that it happened. Like it happened. This is the state that we're in, and I mean,
that doesn't mean that I'm gonna move on from it.
You don't have to, and you don't have to.
No, but I can't acknowledge it. And
you're like, no.
I can't acknowledge it and just be like, my emotions aren't where they were, but they still haven't changed what emotions. Like it's definitely the same emotions, but it's just because time has passed. They're died down.
Hmm.
So I find that, hey, when that happens, I find that I'm much more able to explain myself.
Hmm.
So yeah, man, I'm just disappointed and like disappointed in the scumminess of them. So
Hmm. I mean, I get it. I totally get it. I was dumbfounded when you first told me. I was like, "Yo," and I'm like, "And nothing happened?" But
yeah,
whatever.
nothing,
It's like
nothing.
whatever. So listen, everyone. As I said last time, we're already planning our next live stream. We've got the plan. We roughed out the details in the last episode. If you listened to it, if you haven't, you need to go to it. You need to go listen to it. And we will be talking about it more soon. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, find out what's going on, what we're listening to, what's being watched. And as always, tune in next time.
See ya.